All right, everybody, we are going to start. All right, welcome to Her Tech Hour. Her Tech Hour is a series of educational webinars aiming to inform, connect, and develop women leaders in different fields of technology. One very special thing about Her Tech Hour is it was started by a group of passionate women coming from diverse backgrounds and different stages of tech career. I'm Shreeya Singh Dhakal, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's session. In today's session, we are going to discuss how to succeed in a remote internship. Today, we have with us two amazing panelists who are going to answer all of your questions regarding virtual internships and how to navigate them properly. All right, before I go on to introduce our amazing ladies, I would like to discuss a few in-house rules. So whenever someone is speaking, please turn off your video and microphone to save us some bandwidth and unwanted noise. And if you have like questions, you can use either the chat box or raise your hand feature to ask the questions. I'll be moderating the entire interaction throughout, and I'll make sure that your questions get answered. All right, time to introduce our speakers. The first speaker for today's session is Muazma Zahid. Muazma is a senior engineering manager at Microsoft Azure, where she enables customers to deploy the most demanding data workloads on Azure. She is also an advocate of diversity and inclusion. She is the president of Pakistani Women in Computing, a nonprofit working towards building a global network of Pakistani women technologists and allies to foster the community's growth through meaningful connections and learning opportunities. She is also a leader for AnitaB.org, Seattle community, Women Who Code, and Women at Microsoft. She is truly a remarkable woman in tech. Next, we have with us another amazing personality. She is Monalisa Chati. Monalisa works as a business operations manager at ServiceNow. She is an active member of AnitaB.org Sisters community and the current chair of AnitaBs. She's leading a team of several volunteers to run programs such as speed mentoring, blogging, and note-taking at GSC through her involvement with AnitaBs. She has been recognized by the Silicon Valley Business Journal as a woman of influence for 2020 for her outstanding efforts at promoting and supporting women in the San Francisco Bay Area. Welcome, ladies. I will stop sharing my screen, and I will like Muazma and Monalisa to introduce yourself like a little more to our audience.
Thank you so much, Shreeya, for the kind introductions. It is my pleasure to be here today and talk about a topic which is near and dear to my heart, internships, and especially in this current circumstances, remote internships. I think you gave introduction about myself. I am engineering manager. I've been a lead and I've been tech industry for last 13 years. So have worked and lived in 5 different countries. So a lot of multicultural background over there, and I'm here to share my perspective on the questions that we get here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Muazma. It's so lovely to have you here today. Now, Monalisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shreeya. I'm really excited to join you, Her Tech Hour, and Muazma in this session today. to talk about internship. So that's an area which is extremely close to my heart. I joined ServiceNow about 7 years ago as an intern, and last year I decided to start an intern program in the IT organization at ServiceNow. In the very first year, initially when I pitched the program, especially for the IT org, we did not have as much of an interest, but we ended up hiring 26 interns, and the program was a huge hit. And this year, we've more than doubled. We've hired 42 interns in the IT org alone, and throughout the company, we have more than 300 interns, or everybody joining in a virtual setup. So I'm extremely passionate to share some of our learnings and things we are implementing within the company and what worked for me while I was an intern.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you here. Uh, we understand that internships going virtual is very new to a lot of people, and we've got you covered. So what we're going to do in today's session is we have a set of questions that Hertik Aura has compiled. I'm going to start with those questions first, but you are welcome to either raise your hand or ask your questions in the chat box, and I'm going to moderate the entire session, and I'm going to make sure that your questions are answered. And you don't have to wait until like the very end to ask your questions. You can ask anytime throughout the session, but we'll also have one special Q&A session towards the end. So let's start. My first question is for Muazma. Muazma, what are the keys to a successful internship experience, or what are the criteria based on which managers decide on the success of an intern?
Thank you, Shreeya, for that question. I think the very simple way of a successful internship to measure is like if you get a following offer, right? So if the next year or in the next hiring, if you get an offer from the same company, that means you've had a successful internship. It's not as simple as it sounds. So I would be kind of sharing some key things or insights that as an intern, what you should be doing as part of your internship. And then from a manager's perspective, what are the key things that how a manager could kind of measure the success of an intern. One thing anyone who is a manager here I think would like to make it clear that I think as a manager or lead, it's your responsibility to make sure that you set up the right expectations when you onboard an intern. And though that actually means not just like the work, if you have a tech internship or whatever work you're doing in terms of the items that you're assigned, but also the environment around you. So one of the key things that I would suggest is to have a mentor or a buddy in that sense that can help you throughout your internships. What I have done in my teams before or when I was intern way back is that kind of shadow that mentor throughout and see what they do in their day-to-day kind of work. So that has helped me learn from that experience, and I think that would help a lot of interns as well. Second would be a regular check-in. That is really important, not with just with your manager, but also with your peers and your network. So anyone who is a stakeholder in the work of your team, set up some check-ins with them, and also find out ways to network. So get some time on their calendar for a coffee or a chat and discuss what they do in their team and how can your work influence their work. I think that is a great way to build connections. And last but not least, I know we are going to talk more about it as well, is make your experience the best learning experience you can as an intern in the company. And when I say best learning experience, is not just to the task related, but understand the ecosystem around you. How is your team related to the XYZ things that happen around you, and how can your work make an impact on that bigger agenda or bigger strategy that the team has. And that can be done easily through these check-ins, through these meetups, through understanding working with other teams, and some conversations just off the book as well. So I think those would be my three high-level advice, and I can go and answer in more detail as you have other questions.
Yeah, so we have a follow-up question from Priyanka. She's asking, how would you recommend shadowing your mentor or manager when working from home?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. From working from home, I think what I have done in the past, and I've recently got intern in my team, where what we are trying to do is like having that intern basically be invited on most of the meetings that you attend. That intern is basically not doing much in that meeting, but just listening in. So that's one way of doing it. And again, work with your manager or lead to kind of facilitate that conversation or have you there in those meetings, so that people are not like, who are like, why are you in the meeting, right? So always have an ally in place that does that for you. So in the work in the remote environment, I think just being there, listening what people are doing, what teams, what meetings they're attending, what type of task they're doing. So if you have a daily stand up, listen in very keenly about what they're discussing, what are the major blockers in your team, uh, who are your stakeholders. That's also very important to understand, not just in your team, but the other teams that your team works with. So finding the right contacts in that way is a good way to do that, and work with your manager to be there, and then just attend those meetings wherever, whichever medium tools you use in your organization.
Mm. Awesome. Thank you so much for elaborating on that question. On the same line, everything being virtual comes with a lot of uncertainties and anxiety, like, trying to navigate the entire workplace, trying to know who the right person to talk to is. In this situation, how to keep everything organized? Monalisa, why don't you like help us with this question?
Absolutely. And Mosma brought across some really great points on like teamwork and collaboration. And along with that, it's extremely important to kind of stay organized. And I feel make sure you keep a checklist for yourself on some of the activities and things to do. Even when it comes to meeting people and things you do in meetings, don't just, even if you are shadowing somebody or you have a mentor you are following through, don't just attend and forget about it. Make sure you keep a tab of action items or follow-ups. Things, there would be things which are discussed in meetings which you wouldn't understand, so make sure you go back to the person you have been shadowing and ask them follow-ups on what that specific thing is. And another thing would be on making sure to stay aligned on your goals and priorities and deliverables. With remote setup, it becomes really difficult to kind of stay on top of things. So use tools and technologies. I personally love post-it notes. I love scribbling down notes for myself. So I have a bunch of post-it notes which I use through the day and shove things off, write things on them on what is your goal for the day going to be? What is one new thing you are going to learn that day? So try following that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like on this same like note, what are the other tools, like other than Post-it, what are the other tools that you would suggest, if there are any?
So I love Trello board, and most people are these days using Slack at work. So there is a very cool feature which I often use on Slack called Remind. So where you can just put a reminder for yourself, because there are things which come up, you don't have time to do it then, but put a reminder for yourself to follow on to those things later on. So I personally love Post-it notes, Trello boards, and the Remind feature on Slack.
So far, one of the things that we've discussed is shadowing your mentor and communicating with your team. Um, can you yeah, this question is again for Monalisa. Can you elaborate on like how the team setting within your organization is, and like how would you suggest people, like in that setting, how would you suggest people to, you know, start communicating within and outside, outside the team, the immediate team?
Sure. So my immediate team is business operations, supporting the CIO organization for IT at ServiceNow. And the work involves a lot of teamwork, collaboration, meeting people who are not just from your team, but throughout the IT organization. So one thing which I suggest to everybody is feel free to reach out to people. Internally, we have several collaboration tools. So we use Slack, we use Facebook Workplace, we have LinkedIn, which everyone uses. So if there is a specific person you are interested in, or something you hear about someone which triggers your attention, don't be afraid to reach out to people. Email them, Slack them, ping them, figure out what works for you. We have a very open culture at ServiceNow, so anyone can email anybody or Slack message anyone. So reach out to people first to see if they have time to talk to you, and then make sure to schedule a proper meeting and get on their calendars to talk further. But check in with them what they prefer, what mode of communication. If you are not aware, feel free to use whatever communication channel your company uses to either email or chat message them.
Um, so how do one start with those chat messages? Like, is there a particular format you'd suggest?
Something which I still do is just reach out, introduce yourself, tell them who you are, what you are doing, and why do you want to talk to them. If it is something related to work, share that. If it is something you want to learn about them, ask them for that. If you are looking for someone to be a non-official mentor for you, feel free to ask that. Hey, I know all the cool things you're doing. I'm interested to really know more about your work and take your guidance. Would you have about 15, 20 minutes or half an hour to talk to me more about what you do? And most of the times, especially this is one good tip for interns to use, not just within the company, but outside as well. When you reach out to people, tell them that you are an intern or you are a student looking for jobs or opportunities. People always respond. 90% of the times people will reply back to you, and especially if you work with them, if you're in an office environment with them, I would say the response rate goes up to 99%. So just introduce yourself. Don't be afraid. If you'll be shy, then you are going to lose out on it. So don't be shy at all. Just feel free to share about who you are, and make sure you tell the person what are you looking out for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Monalisa. Muazma, why don't you answer the same question, but like, you know, by telling us what, how teams within Microsoft is like, and how would you suggest, you know, interns to navigate that kind of workspace organization?
Yeah, thank you for your question. I totally agree with what Mona Lisa shared, right? One thing this is a famous quote these days, like your network is your net worth these days, right? So it's really important to find the right connections when you are interning at any company. It could be a startup, big company, or any organization. So it's really important to know the right folks, and then for them to know you as well. So the advice that Mona Lisa shared, I just want to do plus one on that, saying that don't be shy, reach out, and then as you mentioned, have your set of goals when you go to that meeting. About Microsoft, as you know, that's a very huge organization. There are several, like thousands of teams, right? Every year in summer we get a few, I don't know the exact number, but there are like a lot of interns that come in summer. There are several events that are set up for those interns as well. But as an intern, I think it's important to also mingle with other interns in other teams and understand what their experience is and what their team is doing, because this is not necessarily you want to come back in the same team. It's take internship as an opportunity for you to see if that team is the right fit for you or not. also. So don't think that this is the team and this is the only team you can work at, right? In big organizations, there's always the benefit of finding other teams that could better fit what you're looking for. Every team has a team culture in Microsoft, and they could be slightly different, and there, of course, the cultural values that we enforce from the organization perspective. So understanding of the team culture is important. Like in my team, we have a mantra called hungry, humble, and smart. So we are looking for these three attributes when we are hiring for somebody. So if you're showing that during your internship, that you're hungry to learn, that you're humble about it, and then you are smart about finding smart solutions, could be technical or non-technical, you have higher chances to be considered for a full-time opportunity afterwards as well. So yeah, just understanding all of that. And then about your question itself, like how do you find uh, people within the organization in teams? You can search anybody, you can search them, you can actually look at which organization they are, what level they are. You can actually even look at what are the projects they're working on. So once you are in the system, you can look at all of that and see if it's any relevance to you. And one advice I would have is when you are setting up time with them, do some research on that person also, so that not just go in like introducing yourself, but try to understand how can they help you. So what does their team do, and how can you be kind of better fit for their team if in future there are opportunities. So come prepared with those kind of things. And I think do your research in a bit, and mingle with other interns and full-time employees in those other teams. I think that would be useful for any of these networking efforts.
Yeah, one more question along the same line. Someone is asking, how do you maintain your professional network over the years? Like during the internship, you have um, their contact information, you know, what position they're in, what teams they're in. Mm, that is easy to do that during an internship, you know, but how do you take that further and beyond the internship? How do you maintain that over the years? Like Muazma.
Yeah, I can answer that. I think over the time the relationship also varies. So like I have several mentors and I'm a mentor of many people as well, right? So and that kind of varies over the time. So it could become an ally or a sponsor over time as well. And that could not be always a formal mentorship as well. So those labels could vary over time. So I think it's important, like when I look at my networking circle, I know who to turn to when I have a technical problem. I know who to turn to when I have a problem as a manager and I want to understand how to deal with this situation. So having those people around you is the kind of the key of it, right? And over the time, coming back to the actual question, how do you maintain that? Is to keep a like keep rhythm up, right? So if you meet somebody at a conference or an event like this or anywhere else, follow up with them over a coffee or a chat, these days virtual coffee or virtual lunch or whichever way, to follow up with them, have a session with them every 6 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, whatever frequency works for you, and just to catch up on where they are and what you're doing and what they're doing. I think there's another quote, yeah, that it's not like who you know who knows you, it's who knows what you know. So it's very important that other people know what you're doing, so they can bring up you when you're not in the room, right? So over the year, I think over the years what I've done is to make sure I always have those 6 or 7 people that I can turn to in specific areas. And then at different places that I've worked, I've always kept up to kind of catch up with them once a year or once in 6 months over lunch or a coffee to kind of know what they are doing and what I am doing, so they know what I'm doing, and it's kind of ongoing from that perspective.
Awesome. These are like some very useful and like.
Yeah, I would actually call that going above and beyond a mentorship relationship to a sponsorship relationship, where you want a person to vouch for you even when you're not in the room. So you got to make sure when you're making a connection, make a lasting connection, make an impact on the person, so they can vouch for you even when you are not around, and not just while you are in the room working with them. Because a lot of people join as interns, but not everyone potentially gets a full-time offer. There could be various circumstances which lead to this, right? So what happens if you're one of those people who, for whatever reason, was not able to get a full-time offer, but you made good connections who are able to vouch for you, who can sponsor you, and when they find a role where which you could be a good fit for, they will put your name for that.
Awesome. So, with internships moving online, there's this cool hashtag work from home, but we cannot deny the fact that we're also pretty much living in work. So Bianca is asking, what advice would you recommend to avoid burning out or losing work-life balance? Or why don't you go for it, Monalisa?
So one thing which I do is make sure I block my calendar officially for things I want to take a break for. So I block my time for breakfast, I block my time for lunch, I block my time for a snack in between, for a quick exercise workout. So block few times, otherwise you'll just get swamped in meetings. So that's one thing which works for me. And keep, as an intern, it's easier for you because officially you're not supposed to work for more than 40 hours a week. So set the expectations right. If there are days you want to take time off, or there are certain times which don't work for you, keep your manager in the loop. We have folks on the team who are working from Hong Kong right now, and they're working as per a different time zone. And as long as we have our communication clear on, hey, I'll make sure I get all these XYZ things done by end of the day today or end of the week, uh, we are good with that. So make sure you have clear communication with your management and your team on what is going to work for you, what are your hours going to be, and what kind of a communication you are going to have with them to keep them updated on what you're working for.
Awesome. Thank you so much. But one question that follows is, how do you understand what are the expectations from you, and how do you go about achieving that? Like, I would like Muazma, why don't you give a shot at this question?
Yeah, I think this is not just like applicable to interns, but it's important as a full-time employee also, or anyone who's working anywhere, or even in personal relationships, right? Expectation setting is a key thing, right? So there are many ways that you can do it from a process perspective, and then there are many ways you kind of make sure that you are following up on things. I think Mona Lisa mentioned something very similar. Whatever system tools, things you have, like if you're using Jira or DevOps tools or Trello or Asana or anything that you have in place, make sure you have items assigned to you, and then you are kind of working towards them. And then if you have some way of like daily stand up or weekly updates, or whichever way you kind of put your status out, make sure you put in your status there, and then your manager, lead, and anyone who is your stakeholder is aware of that. So that's really important, and it's even more important when you are remote, because in physical environment you can easily walk up to somebody and understand and ask what's their status, right? So so always, like I think at the start of the conversation, Mona Lisa mentioned that keep a list of tasks that you have. If you don't have a system in place, try to like suggest that to your lead, that maybe we should use it. That is one way of showing that you want to kind of invest in this company and you want to do something, right? The other part of that is set up one-on-ones, right? In some of the cases, I know managers kind of already are overwhelmed with meetings, so they might not have a regular sync with you, which they shouldn't. But in that case, suggest that you should have a regular sync with your manager and your lead, or whoever is kind of overseeing the project that you're working on. That is the best way of actually getting some status across to them, and also get insights from them, what is coming and how can you add value to the work that you're doing. I actually asked an intern from last year who converted as a full-time employee in another team in Azure about her top 3 or 4 tips, and she mentioned that one of the things that she actually didn't do last year, but she would wish that she could do, is also set up time with skips level managers, where you can get to know other projects in the same area that you're working with. So that is also something you can do. So feel free to reach out and kind of set that up. If you don't want to do that, ask your manager to do it at least on your behalf, so you can have constant sync. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, if you're stuck at some problem, if you have a technical problem or process problem, you're not able to reach out to somebody, please bring it up. Do not wait till like the end of the week or end of whatever sprint, or to tell that this is something you're blocked on. Please bring up as soon as you're blocked, especially in the remote environment, with your lead manager, whoever you work with, or your mentor, and ask about the ways around it. If you're not able to find some documentation, if it's a technical problem, access problem, whatever tools you have in your company, try to reach out and ask for help. It's always okay to ask for help, and I think any company who doesn't support that kind of questions and help up culture, it is not the right fit for you. So you should always ask for help, and there should be always people around you that can help you in those situations.
Plus one to that as well. It's extremely critical to take charge and ask for help. And initially, early on, I would suggest have frequent check-ins with your manager. And even then, in between the check-ins, if you're ever stuck, don't wait until the next check-in. Just reach out and over-communicate. It's always better to over-communicate.
All right, like on the same lines, Monalisa, why don't you like tell us, like we've discussed, it is okay to ask for help, ask for feedback, but how do you go about doing it? You know, how do you put it forward? What are your needs? What are the things that is not going as you expected it to go? How do you put it forward?
So if you are stuck or if you have a problem somewhere, then I would say bring it up to the leadership's attention sooner the better, and tell them what you are doing, what approach you are taken, and what is not working. Don't just go to them with a problem that, hey, I have a problem, but go to them with a few suggestions of what you think, and if you want their feedback or recommendation, ask them. I have a few things in mind, but I'm not sure what's going to work. What do you suggest? Or do you have an idea? I'm kind of stuck at this. I don't know what to go about it. Or what do you recommend? So go to them with a problem, potential solutions, and ask them to give their opinion. But make sure to bring it up to their attention sooner rather than later.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This question is actually for the both you ladies, especially like this question requires a lot of understanding of office culture. So, you know, understanding office culture is very important for an intern, and especially for those who would want to, you know, convert their internship to a full-time offer. Uh, so, like, how do interns understand the office culture without being in the office now that everything is virtual?
So some things which we shared is about like communication, seeking for help, and Muazma mentioned as well, if you ask somebody for help and they are not willing to share the information with you, then you know that's not a culture you want to be a part of. Because if they're not helping you as an intern, how do you know they are going to be there for you and see you succeed when you join them as a full-time? So that's one red flag. Be careful of that. If they are not reciprocative or approachable, that is not going to be a team where you will be successful long term. And especially in virtual setup, a lot of companies we are doing this is having various interactive sessions, not just for full-time employees, for interns as well, things which our interns are leading amongst themselves. So to get to know each other, they are organizing their own socials and own community events. So make sure you participate in each of those activities, see that would kind of give you an idea of what the company culture is. Are they open to new ideas, or are they folks who are more like all work and nothing more than that?
So what are the other elements other than how approachable they are, or what are the events they have? What are there any other like specific things that interns can look out to understand what the company is about? Like for example, um, I personally would think, for me diversity matters. So like that is one thing I would look out for. Is there any other like specific things as such that you would suggest the interns to look out for in a company to understand the culture better?
Sure. So one thing there is, I know diversity is important, and not every company might have the diversity quotient right, but I wouldn't really take that as a deal breaker. Like for me, when I joined ServiceNow about 7 years ago, I was the only woman on the team, and I personally found it odd, and nobody around me had any issues with that. But I made sure I brought it up to my manager's attention that we need more women on the team. And he did not realize there were no other women until I brought this up to him. And then he made sure to hire more people. So as long as you see the management is receptive of your feedback, that's a good way to know what kind of a company culture there is too.
Sorry, I was muted. Awesome. Muazma, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think a couple of things that popped up in my mind. I think one is the understanding of the core values of the team and the org that you are in. I think Mona Lisa mentioned that as well. So there are two ways to do that. One is to kind of see in action in every meeting that you go to, every conversation that you have. You see how people behave in different situations, and that will give you a good idea about what the team culture is. Some of the values and cultures are defined, like they should have some kind of all hands they where they discuss those as well. Like so in Microsoft we have a very clear a set of rules or set of values that we kind of practice, and we want to make sure we do that in every meeting. But not every meeting would be same, not every experience would be same as well, so make sure you kind of look out for the experiences which are not what you kind of looking out for, right, in that team. The other thing is, when you are in those situations, again, seek out for the right help in that sense, to understand if this is a one-off scenario or if this is something that is a practice in this team. That is definitely a red sign, a red flag for you to not come back to that team. And both of you mentioned diversity, right? I think diversity is getting better in a lot of these organizations. The part which is harder to achieve is the inclusion piece, right? Especially being a minority in the tech workforce. When you are part of those meetings, you should make sure that your voice is getting heard. So over the years, I have trained myself how to get my voice heard. How do how do I deal with mansplaining? How do I deal with situations where I'm the only woman in the room, or things like that, right? So don't get overwhelmed by those situations if you are the only minority in the room. I think it's important to understand that you're there for a reason, and you can do your job, and get that across to your leadership that you can do it, and tell yourself that yes, you can do it. So I think if you keep that mindset, and then find the right team and culture around you, most of the organizations you'll find in any of these companies would be great fit for you. So look for the right signs and see if your work and your passion kind of match what the team has to offer you.
Awesome. We discussed a couple of things around like work life balance, culture in the workplace, communicating. But one of the one of the most important questions like of this time, especially given COVID and everybody is at home. Why don't you both share with us how what a typical day for you is like on the weekdays, so that like our audience can get a better idea of what it is like working from home, what it is like dividing work and home life efficiently. So yeah, any one of you can take it up first.
I could go first. So I think I have a big disclaimer in that sense. So I was assigned to a COVID response project, which means I had way more work than regular when I started working from home fully, right, since mid-February, end of February. Of course, I had longer working hours than usual because of the nature of the project. But I think the way and what Mona Lisa shared in one of your questions was to the way I've made it work is to make sure I have the right boundaries between my work and home and everything else. Especially if you are a mom or if the schools were off. So I felt like I had 4 or 5 jobs. Homeschooling is a full-time job as well. So I had very strict schedule for everything, and I'm very organized about those things. So I make sure that everything is according to that plan. Of course, not every day goes according to that, but I had breaks in between for the things that need attention. So if my daughter is studying and she needs help, so I had breaks and defined for that. And I'm very upfront and clear about that to my manager and my skip, that this is my schedule right now and these are my responsibilities. The day that for me looks like very typical day, like wake up, breakfast, everything, start working 9ish in the morning. In the morning we have a stand up. After that we try to reduce as much meetings as we can. This is a newer thing for a lot of us because we're trying to kind of reduce that moving from one meeting to another meeting to that meeting fatigue that happens especially when you are online. And we're trying to keep our meetings to like 20 minutes or 50 minutes, so we everybody gets that 10 minutes break between meetings. They're not just always switching from one to another. So those are some things that have worked for me and my team. And then the last thing that I think we have been doing in our team is a lot of like social type activities, since we cannot be in the same space. So we've done like team activities, we've done online games with them. We have a coffee hour every week. We have also like a team level org level event like that, and like some fun stuff that we are doing online. And then those are the few ways that it has worked for us, working remotely and still staying connected with what the team is up to and what others in the org are up to.
Yeah, it's been kind of similar for us as well. I would say with everyone working from home and all what's been going around in the world, it's kind of easy to stay safe, but it's difficult to stay sane. So how do you ensure you keep doing things which keep your sanity? Like I luckily had no challenges with the homeschooling and stuff. I did not have to worry about any of those things, but I don't know how to cook, so I've been self-teaching myself to do that and spending time every day on trying out something new to cook. It's been really simple, like baked vegetables and one pot meals, but just things that you do to kind of keep your work life smooth as well and stay sane. And work for me has been more, my work is a lot around team building and collaboration. So uh, day is usually swamped with meetings, and as Muazma said, uh, due to COVID she's been busy, so ServiceNow launched free apps, and we gave them away to any company or any enterprise looking to manage the safety of their employees. So even the city of Los Angeles is using our apps, and Kim Kardashian was tweeting about it. So work has been a little hectic with everyone being remote and trying to develop apps, make sure they're rolling out seamlessly, and talking about them and sharing about what we've done with our customers and companies who could benefit from using that. But that's why a lot of meetings and collaboration. And what we've tried to do before or for each meeting is to ensure you have the right stakeholders and the objective of the meeting gets achieved. Because oftentimes you have 30 people in the room, but you don't have a clear outcome from that meeting. So how do you make sure that that doesn't happen? You have the right set of people, be it 5, be it 10, but you have the right folks there and the right decision makers, so you have the specific set of action items and a productive meeting.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing like your days, like what your typical day, work from home day is like. There are like, we have discussed a lot of things along the lines of internship. One question that I wanted to ask was, what can folks who have not received an internship do during this time? Yeah, Monalisa, why don't you go at it first?
Sure. So one thing I have been recommending to people is stay busy, take on side projects and activities that you can talk about, or maybe take online classes. There's so much content available online. There's content available for free as well. So keep yourself busy. Make sure you're doing something productive and meaningful, which you can talk about during your interviews. Don't just laze around and do nothing, but take on meaningful projects. They could also be community events or volunteer things that you do. But do something which you can talk about. And it's even better if it's something relevant to your coursework. But stay productive and make sure it's something you can talk about in a meaningful way.
Muazma, would you like to add anything to that?
A couple of things on that. One, I think another way for students or like interns like who don't have internship is to kind of they can go active on open source. So that's a easier way to learn something, do something meaningful, and then if you can add it in your GitHub, that is something you could directly add to your resume that adds value for your interviewing in future. So take any meaningful projects. I'm in the data domain, so if you go to kaggle.com and take any of the competitions there, take a data set, do the end-to-end modeling, whatever you want to do, and then put that in your GitHub and then add it to your resume. I think this is one way you can utilize the summer months or to add to your resume. One other thing that would be helpful is hackathons. So I know during COVID times right now there are a lot of companies are doing online hackathons that you can contribute to. Again, that would be part of a project that would be kind of virtual, where you meet with unknown people and you can make your own team and still do something that is more meaningful. So yeah, as Monalisa was mentioning, any projects that you can do hands-on that you can add back to your resume, those are the best ways to kind of spend this time when you don't have an internship, and then of course give back to there are many open source projects for communities as well. Like I know NitaB.org has one that you can contribute to, and there are many others that you can work on that. So if you're a technical person, you can still do that, but still be part of a bigger org in that sense, indirectly to do the work.
Awesome, very useful suggestions. Definitely, like all these open source projects, hackathon, and being a part of some meaningful community service would be a great way to spend times right now. So we have like 10 more minutes. I'm gonna open discussions, questions from the audience. So if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and you can ask them now. If you have any questions, you can actually unmute yourself with Keynote on. Just a second.
So Smriti is asking what kind of questions would you recommend to ask a recruiter or manager? So is your question pertaining to when you are an intern or when you are seeking for an internship? Well, I would say when you are an intern, have an open conversation, tell them you are interested, and what can you do to ensure you get a full-time offer or you get a return internship offer? What are the expectations? How are they measuring you? How are you working towards their measurements? Have an open conversation about it. And there's another one for Muazma on how important is data structures and algorithm to get an internship at Microsoft.
Yeah, I think if you're, I'm assuming you're talking about software engineering roles, so that's really important to understand data structures, algorithms. There are a lot of websites that you can go and practice on, LeetCode, HackerRank. Those are two good ones that you can do a lot of practice and get some familiarity about it. A lot of like linked list, graphs type questions are pretty common in the initial interview loops if you're looking for a software engineering role. Some in the data science roles as well, they are we do ask those questions as well. So yeah, they're really important.
Yeah. Ifra has raised her hand. So Ifra, if I got your name right, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for organizing this. This was really helpful. I just had a question like regarding the fact that you guys said that we should actually build a network when we are doing an internship. So I just wanted to say, like, if we want to know the other teams, not just our team, should we just send them a message on Slack? Or what do you think is like the right way to approach them? Because those managers are already busy with their interns. So how do we not overburden them and still be able to connect in a full way? Yeah, so thank you.
Yeah, I can take that. I think as both of us mentioned before as well, sending a cold message is okay as long as you send it with a context that this is what you're looking for and you want to meet or talk more about your team or want to understand the type of work they do. The other way would be to kind of work not directly to the manager, but somebody in the team, let's say a software engineer or a similar role that you are kind of applying at. To kind of set up some time with them and reach out to them to understand what that team does. That is another way. And I think the third way is if you have an intern in that team, just ask them or meet them or understand what that team does. And if you think that team is a better fit for you or is something you still want to know more about, then don't hesitate to just send out the note. I don't think any manager being super busy is going to say no because of that. Just have the context of like, I want to meet, I want to understand what your team does, and this, I am this, and I'm looking for XYZ in the conversation.
All right. Lauren from
Thank you.
sorry, Lauren from London. She's asking, is there a way to get a list of the programs or software to train yourself at home? Like, do you have any particular programs or software that you guys suggest? This is for the both of you.
So just to understand the question, are you asking for courses or um, is this specific to that? Because right now, if you go to Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, or Udemy, a lot of the courses are free or at very minimal fees these days. So whatever your track is, you can find a good course in any of these websites that I mentioned. And sign up and basically take the course. I know some of, like, I work in the cloud computing side of things, so a lot of these cloud computing courses, even the certification courses, are reduced to a certain price, in some cases free. So you can go to any of those and search for it and get a link. But my to-go courses websites is Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, and Udemy. Those three are the ones that I use for my learning.
Monalisa, what do you suggest?
I've been hands-on on LinkedIn Learning. I really find it very useful, and I'm not from the technical side of things, so I find it helpful that it has a good blend of all different types of courses from all walks of life. So you can find a course on executive presence to leadership qualities to actual programming. So whatever you need, it's right on your fingertips these days.
Awesome. Shraddhanjali is asking, what would a meaningful contribution to an open source project look like, presumably when a goal is to put it on a resume or GitHub?
Yeah, I think it's a talk in itself. Maybe we should do a follow-up on open source. So, but I think in open source, there are 2 or 3 ways of doing that. So there are existing projects in any of these softwares that you can start taking small or beginner issues and start contributing towards those. So mostly in GitHub, they have a Jira item or items assigned. You can assign yourself and work on it and put a PR up, and somebody would review and merge it, right? Or you can go back and forth with that. That's the smallest way to start in working in a big open source project. The other way of doing that is you take a project from any of these courses and you build the code for it, and then you put it out in your open source project like GitHub. So that is another way as well. Like I mentioned, Kaggle, from the data science perspective, you can take a project, any data set which is available over there, and build a model, train a model, do the end-to-end analysis of it, and then put it in your GitHub. That's another way of doing it as well. Third way is basically you work with any of these open source communities, and like let's say their websites is hosted on open source, so you can contribute to that in their website or whatever work they're doing. GHC has a very good open source track. They also have open source day that you can work on the projects over there. So that is another way that you can kind of contribute to that as well. So those are 2 or 3 ways that I am aware of, and of course there could be others.
Is there anything you'd like to add, Monalisa, to this?
Unfortunately, that's not my area of expertise. So, yeah.
Yeah, so we're on time, and so thank you so much, Muazma and Monalisa, for your time, for amazing answers. I'm sure like it will be really helpful to everybody interning right now. I'm interning right now, and I can say that I got to learn so many things from today's session. So thank you very much for that. And with that, now that we're coming towards the end, if you guys want to connect with each other, then you can put up your LinkedIn in the comment and connect with each other. I'll give a couple of minutes for people to put in their LinkedIn and to reach out to others. Yeah.
I really love that you are encouraging networking via this. So that's terrific. Thank you, Shreeya.
Thank you, Hertik Kaur. Actually, it's the idea. I'm just executing it for today.
Thank you so much for having us today. I think it was great discussion, and I shared my LinkedIn over there as well. Feel free to reach out for any follow-ups. Anybody has any questions? If anybody is looking at opportunities in Microsoft, I'm happy to kind of look at your resume and provide referral if it's needed as well. So more than happy to do that.
Absolutely, and it was terrific being part of this group. And if anyone's looking for a role at ServiceNow, more than happy to put in a word as well. Or in general, if anyone wants any other advice, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Muazma. Thank you, Monalisa. Thank you, Dhakal, for organizing this. I bet all of us got to learn a great deal about virtual internships and how to navigate opportunities in this virtual setting. I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Um, with that, I'll end the session. Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.